Relationships can bring out the most bizarre things in us, and they can also cause us to experience the most amazing things in our lives. They help us grow as a person and teach us how to take care of each other. But even in the best relationships, cracks and problems arise. Before we start, can we get this video to 1,000 likes? Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Here and there will be disagreements or even quarrels. We simply cannot always agree with our loved one about everything. Even in the most stable of relationships, doubts sometimes surface. For example, about whether our partner really loves us. Would this person be with you forever and by your side? Or is the relationship only temporary? You can never be 100% sure. Some people go so far as to test their partner. After years of being happily married, she decided to test her husband's loyalty with a simple trick. It's not uncommon to play a little prank on your lover, of course, but this woman had a very special reason for doing so. She wanted to know if her husband, after all these years of a happy marriage, was still faithful to her after the honeymoon period of their relationship was over. So she devised a plan to find out, hoping to confirm his loyalty to her. Her plan was to write her husband a letter saying that their marriage was over. She tried to do this as convincingly as possible so that he would really think she meant it, which in reality she wasn't. For hours, she wrote her message on a piece of paper, pondering every word that ended up in the letter. She just couldn't know at the time how this trick would affect her future. In her letter, the message became very clear that she no longer saw a future with him. She wrote how different they were and how there was no real spark between them anymore. She also shared that she wanted to be alone for a while and that being married didn't give her the freedom she was looking for. After spending more than 3 hours writing this letter to her husband, she finally finished and put her pen down next to her. She read the letter one more time, then left it on the bed. It was now time for phase 2 of her plan. After putting the letter away, she crawled under the bed to wait for her husband to walk into the bedroom. She wanted to be there when he read the letter, so she could hear and feel his reaction. She knew one thing for sure, and that was that her letter would elicit a response, but she just didn't know what this response would be. Would her husband be devastated? Would she have broken his heart? Or would he be relieved? She heard the front door open. Her husband had come home, and he was about to enter the bedroom. She was extremely nervous. All she could think was, what would his reaction be? He found the letter she had written for him on the bed and opened it. He began to read the letter, and she waited in silence to hear a response from him. Surprisingly, he was very quiet, and all she could hear was her own heart beating in her throat. It went on, and still there was no sign of her husband's response. She wasn't sure what to do, because she hadn't expected this. At least, she had hoped that he would cry or become enraged. Instead, her husband was silent, dead silent. He didn't say a word. Then her husband picked up his cell phone and called. He was talking to someone, and he was laughing at how relieved he was that his marriage was finally over. The woman felt her heart explode. This was anything but the reaction she had hoped for. Did he really not love her anymore? After finishing the phone call, he quickly left the room. He didn't seem to care. The letter she'd written expressing her feelings, which was untrue. But of course, he didn't know that. She heard the front door slam shut and her husband leave the house. Where did he go? Did he have another? She crawled out from under the bed, devastated by what had just happened. She didn't know what to do next, and then she saw a new letter on the bed. She couldn't believe her eyes. The letter was from her husband, something she never expected. She thought it was a suicide note, and she was already preparing for the worst. So she opened the letter and started reading. She couldn't remember her husband interrupting his phone call to write a letter, so she assumed it would be a short letter. She was wrong. "Dear wife," the letter began. She was so nervous she could barely read the words on the paper. It took her a few minutes to calm down before she could continue reading his letter. "The next time you try to test me and find a way for me to prove my love to you, make sure your feet don't stick out from under the bed." She was ashamed. How could she not have noticed that now? Had her feet been visible all along, hiding under their bed? She immediately regretted the letter she had written to her husband. A letter that was full of lies, and she didn't know how to look him in the eye again after this lame joke. Would he forgive her for this vile act? She decided she wanted to apologize and started calling his name, hoping he would hear her. She thought he might be somewhere nearby, so she ran out of the house and looked around. She just didn't see him anywhere and began to wonder where he had gone. She began to panic more and millions of questions ran through her head. Did he have another wife? Did he want a divorce? Had he left? She picked up her phone and decided to call him. She was completely upset and so hoped he would answer. He immediately picked up the phone and burst out laughing. "Did you really think I'd fall for that?" he asked her. His reaction was again not at all what she had expected, and she was so ashamed. She apologized to him again and again, hoping he would forgive her. She kept saying sorry. She so hoped that the love of her life would forgive her. His response was, "I love you so much, and it breaks my heart to know that you have doubts about our marriage. I want to spend the rest of my life with you and nothing will change that," he said. To this day, the couple laughs at this bizarre move and the way he immediately realized she was tricking him. Although her husband did not enjoy reading the letter, he knew the contents were false. From that moment on, he took extra time to let his wife know how he feels about her. It is safe to say that she has never had any doubts about her marriage after this day. It's been 4 years since she last wrote him a letter, and their marriage is stronger than ever.